So tell me a little bit about you and your journey so our audience knows and gets a backstory and the context. And your beautiful setting at the back is also a story in itself. Uska bhi thoda sa bata dijiyega.
Fair. So thanks, Deepa. Thanks. I think Milind is there, I suppose. I
Yes.
need to thank him as well. I mean, just knowing you people was great. You know what? I think we met in one of the alumni events from BIT MESRA, and I think it was an instant connection. And I think these are the connections that we cherish. You know what? We like to be around people who actually have a similar kind of, I would say, bandwidth to match with. So thanks very much for inviting me here, and I'm sure that I will be able to kind of really inspire a bit. I don't know how much of it that I would talk would really inspire, or probably just be my anecdotal kind of experience that I would be able to relate to. But just giving a brief background, you know what? When you narrate your story, you kind of really learn yourself. You actually, many a times things happen quite organically. You haven't planned things in life.
Yeah.
And when I'm talking to you right now and probably trying to remember what happened, that's the time when you actually remember the trigger points. Otherwise, at that moment, there was no trigger point. I wouldn't say that, you know what, I was bound to be an artist, or I was bound to be an architect, or I started an entrepreneurial journey because there was this stuff. When I reflect back, I see it. I
Yes.
see there that maybe this actually happened. And I think most of us lead lives in a similar way. Yeah. And I think it will be very wrong for me to say that, you know what, they were very planned things that has made me come here.
Yeah.
There was absolutely no planning, I would say. So I grew up in a very small town called Jamshedpur. It's also called Tata Steel. Dad was forever with Tata, and we grew up there. It was very small. People knew each other. You know what? I mean, I think you could hardly kind of escape if you're kind of like bunking class from school. Somebody or the other will actually just kind of bump into you, and then the news will somehow reach your dad. Yeah. And that's the kind of town Jamshedpur is, and it's a lovely town. It was situated, now it's in Jharkhand, but it was situated in Bihar. But but it was clean. It was absolutely spotlessly clean because Tata maintained it, and we never kind of really felt that we were belonging to this state called Bihar. When I came here, probably at times I felt that, you know what, at times I just kind of said, oh, I'm come from Bihar. Is that kind of really something which I should be careful about when I'm saying or not? But at that point in time, when you live in Jamshedpur, you pretty much feel this is one of the most modern towns around.
Yeah.
Also, I think Jamshedpur is full of people who are in jobs. Yeah, you either work for Tata Steel or you're working in ancillary services with Tata Steel as such. And half the people are engineers and half the people are doctors. Yeah,
Wow.
and typical to Three Idiots movie, I think all the curriculum, school, mentoring is done for you to become one of them. Yeah. And it's hard for you to not be in that environment and not compete for it, because you want to be kind of really your metrics of success is getting a job in Tata Steel and probably having an apartment in Jamshedpur and probably having eating out in restaurants, etc., etc. So that's your world. So what happened was, I actually dad actually wasn't kind of really too encouraging about my not encouraging. I would say he was not very sure what would I do in life, because I was not very good at studies at that point of time. I used to sketch a lot, but that necessarily didn't translate into any kind of really great grades as such. Yeah. And Tata Steel had this wonderful program where if you are with Tata Steel for 10 years, you can be your son or your daughter can be an apprentice. Okay,
Wow.
an apprentice can actually get a job after 10th standard. And he said, you know what? He just kind of very politely one day came to my room and said, you know what? I think you should join the apprentice program. Yeah. And I think now when I look back, I think that was an ego hurt. Yeah, you kind of it hurt me quite a bit, because I was almost thinking that I will become an engineer. Yes, I will go to a competitive exam. But he said, you know what, probably not. You probably can join the job right away. And I think that was a turning point where I actually was I would say I just kind of thought about myself at that point of time, that what exactly is is he thinking? What is he thinking about me that he has actually come to conclusion that is what I'm going to do in life? Uh, and actually that actually just kind of really made me work a bit more just to prove to my dad that, you know what, I'm better than what you think of me, yeah, right now. And maybe it was what, I mean, right now when I reflect back, I think maybe it was one of his aim to do that. I mean, he was almost poking me to realize that, you know what, it's high time you start thinking about it. Then I joined architecture. So I joined architecture, although dad was kind of really unaware of what architecture is all about. And he was quite kind of very skeptical about, but he was happy that I could actually crack the exam. I could actually crack the entrance exam for architecture and got through. So he was more happy about that. There's something which, there's some focus that he has got into, but he was not sure that what I would actually really go ahead and do in life. Post architecture, I actually came to Bombay. Bombay was great, and Bombay was, I mean, I was almost kind of really coming from a small town. Everything looked much bigger. Yeah, the roads were bigger, the buildings were bigger. I had not gone to any building more than 4 floors. Suddenly, I'm seeing like 20 floors around. And I still remember walking down the Marine Drive. I was there for an interview, and I was walking down the Marine Drive, and in the afternoon I saw so many people just kind of sitting on that ledge of the whole thing, and I was like, oh my god, there's this so much happening. It's not, and when you're graduating, you almost feel that. And I did fairly well in architecture. I wouldn't say that I was bad. So when you're graduating, you almost feel that, you know what, people are waiting for you. People are waiting for architects like you to come to the city and then build great things. And when you reach there, you see kind of millions of people already doing that. And then you start feeling very small. You start feeling that, you know what, am I in the right place? But I think it was quite eye opening. I think also humbling a bit at that point of time. But Bombay was a city of opportunity. It's really a city of opportunity. I think the moment I started walking into people's offices for interview, the kind of response I got was great. I mean, I landed a job which paid me 4,000, and I was expecting around 2,500 because my rent was 1,200. I lived in New Bombay. I actually had an apartment in Nerul, and I had to pay 1,200 as rent. I thought, okay, fine, double that is my salary. Yeah, that's good enough for me. Yeah, I could really survive with it. I got a 4,000 bucks salary, and I was really very happy about it. Post that got after a while, I started realizing it's not good enough. My fellow engineering friends into TCS and Infosys are actually earning more than 14,000, 15,000. And those are the comparison scales that you start kind of at that moment, that what are you doing with your life? So I tried pursuing masters. I was actually kind of really interested in design. Post architecture, my skills into understanding space and design got better. And IIT has this course, which are a place called IDC. It's called Industrial Design Center. Okay, so it's quite known for its design education. So I applied for it. I got through it. And post that, I graduated. By that time, I was married to Priyanka, and we had already thought as a designer, when you actually start learning so much of design, you want to leave a mark. Okay, you don't want to be sitting in a desk and say, you know what, I'm going to do what I'm being told to do. I want to create what I want to create, kind of situation. That was the aim as such. And at that point of time, after graduating, I think both of us started a company. Yes, there was a lot of struggle. I'm going to really not talk about everything right up front. I mean, if there's anything opportunity that comes up, I'll probably narrate a story. But there were struggles. There were a lot of struggles. But we were only kind of initial days. Our only aim was to meet our numbers, which means that X amount of things to survive. X number of rupees to survive and X number of rupees to really get. Okay, that exactly was the formula. There was no kind of rocket science to it. So we kind of really worked hard towards it. Me and Priyanka were the only ones in the office, but still we used to call it as a company. And whenever we kind of approached for a project, we said, you know what, we run a company. Yeah, and coming back to office, it was we who used to sweep the floor. We used to make the tea. We used to make sure that the floor is clean or the computers are being kind of wiped off. So all those things happened. Yeah. Post that, 2006, Priyanka actually wanted to do her master's in design. Yeah, and then that's how we actually she said she wants to study abroad, and said, you know what, and she paid for my education when I was doing a master's. So I said, it's my turn to do it. And that time I sold my first company. I would say still two people company at that point of time. We had some projects. So I sold it to a company called Visualize, which was taken over by a company in London. So incidentally, I was placed in London, and Priyanka got an opportunity to pursue her master's. And London was absolutely, again, similar to what, when I came from Jamshedpur to Bombay, it was absolutely mind blowing, and everything changed in terms of scale. When I went from Bombay to London, everything changed. Yeah, everything changed. The uh, sense of architecture, the sense of art, the sense of people, the sense of communicating with other cultures, all those kind of things got evolved. Yeah, I mean, you had to learn for it, and you start kind of really trying to grasp as much as you can when given an opportunity. So that's what happened. London was absolutely brilliant. It's an art capital of the world. So there was lots of inspirations around. And probably at that point of time, I started sketching a bit. I started kind of really using charcoal, beautiful sceneries around. So I used to kind of really at times do sketching and stuff, but it wasn't kind of really a full-time stuff. And after 4 years, 2010, we thought, you know what, we need to give back. You know, we need to give back to the country where we came from. There's a lot of design and there's a lot of Indianness in us. And I don't think so it will be fair to kind of really not create something which we really believe can change the country where we belong to. And obviously, there were risks coming back. We had our small little son, who was very, very English in his upbringing. For the first 5 years of his life, he was completely in England. We knew it was a big change for him, but we thought that maybe this is the right time to do it. So we came back here. We started this company called Fractal Inc. And now Fractal Inc. is a fairly well-known brand in the world of design. I think we have done well. And we are close to 120 people. We started with 5 people. We were 4 founders, along with, there's another couple, Geeta and Hemant, who actually joined us, me and Priyanka. And yeah, I think from there onwards, we were 5 people. Now we are 120 people. It's a long journey. We also got acquired in 2016 by Dentsu Aegis Network, which is a large advertising conglomerate. And yeah, I mean, that's a story. And last 1 year, probably I started painting, and painting was just something that I left in between. I mean, and I just picked it up. I didn't really realize that what will I do with it. The first few paintings were just kind of really a weekend activity, but slowly I got engrossed into it, and I started feeling that there's an appreciation coming in. People are looking at the painting, and Instagram, I started posting some stuff, and it was really kind of very encouraging. So I started painting, and I painted a lot. So now I've painted close to around 200 pieces of art.
Wow.
And in the last 1.5 years. And in the recent times, I also, so some people said, why don't you open it for an exhibition? And in recent times, I actually just opened a few of my paintings still for sale, just to help the cause of COVID. And surprisingly, I could raise close to around 2 lakh immediately in a month's time to give back.
Wow.
For the people, but that's a story been. There has been a lot of learnings over the years, but I wouldn't kind of really say that I planned anything as a part of learning. I think it was more kind of falling and then getting up. What I saw. Yeah, and right now here we are. I have a house here, which Deepa just mentioned. It was designed by me and Priyanka. We're very passionate about architecture. We're very passionate about design, art, everything. And yeah, we're in a good place at the moment. And I would actually let Deepa ask me a few questions just to kind of see what I have to more kind of contribute to this talk.
So you had some questions of the audience. So there was so maybe let's just see what the audience thinks about one of your questions. So can we just have that, Disha, one of the question poll for the audience to respond? Because I'm going to dive straight into talking about the COVID situation. So there are 2 questions. Do you feel a new world order is in making? Yes, no, somewhat. And in the second question, if given a clean slate, would you revisit the choices you have made? Yes, no, somewhat. So let's hear what people are saying about our quick poll.
Will I be able to see the result? No.
Soon, I think we'll give people a little while. Uh, I don't know how many will watch this as a recording and how many are watching it live, because after all, it's a Thursday morning. Okay, so
Fairly
Tanay, look at the answers. Yes, 79% people think there is a new world order in the making, and almost 40% feel yes, they will revisit the choices, and 36% feel they will somewhat revisit the choices. So looks like change is the name of the game. Thank
Oh
you
yeah,
very much.
yeah,
Yeah,
very much matches my kind of really
assessment.
thought as well. I think the post question was pretty obvious. I would say. I just thought that are you thinking about it not? I mean, although many times we passively think about it, it's changing, but are you actively kind of doing anything about it?
When did it, as an entrepreneur, as a business, when how did you as a 4-member team start to think about this? What was your thought process, Tanay, at that time? March.
You know what? I mean, you mean the growth? How did we grow from this point onwards? Did we ever think about it? Is that the
So,
question?
no, my question was, the first thought. So, for example, Milind and I were in Singapore end of January, and people started to ask us, "Oh, you're in Singapore, COVID, are you safe?" And it wasn't even in our consciousness. Matlab, COVID ho raha hai kahin to, and
Yeah.
we never give it much thought. Uh, but then it slowly starts to sort of come closer and closer. So I want to understand, because you have a large company, you're part of a large global network, what were the kind of messaging that was coming to you as a leadership team, and what kind of messages started to reach you all at Fractal Link Design?
So I think in the initial days, yes, when COVID just kind of really started making some news headlines, we were cautious about it because Dentsu is a global company, and the leadership was informed much early in the days, because China is a big market for Dentsu as well. So we were informed much early in the days of COVID about the things that is happening in China and neighboring countries. So even Europe, I think Europe is a big market as well for us. So we got early signs as such that these changes will have to be made logistically to be able to run the company with as little disruption as possible. Yeah, we got kind of really those early warnings with us. But saying that, in India specifically, I think we took we took a bit of liberty. I don't know why did we take this liberty. I think we took this liberty being in Bombay, and Bombay I think is very resilient to a lot of things. Whether it was a bomb blast stuff where we actually came back to work quite soon. I think it took a bit of time for us to really realize the magnitude of this whole thing. And once we realized, I think there was very little time for us to really respond to it. So immediately, I think after the announcement of lockdown, in 2 days we had to pretty much go online completely. Yeah. And there was a bit of struggle there. There was definitely a bit of struggle, but thankfully, what happened was that since most of our people
Mm.
were equipped doing projects remotely, although
Okay.
they were in office, they seem to really cope up well with the whole thing. Yeah,
Nice.
coped up very well. They actually transformed almost kind of with no disruption into the world of trying to service the people whom they're working with
Wow.
from their homes. Uh, we definitely took a hit in the initial days in terms of revenue, which was kind of really where we actually started kind of really thinking about some strategies of how to counter that whole hit that we'll get. Uh, but as the time progressed, we started seeing that the kind of business that we are into, which is just purely into digital strategies and digital domain, we
Yeah.
started seeing slightly more upbeat thoughts coming on the market, which was looking at some of the companies which were slightly sluggish in their movement towards moving faster. They started moving much faster, and that actually changed a bit of our momentum,
Okay.
and we started being slightly more positive about the whole thing.
Okay.
Uh, and yeah, I think currently I also see that this whole change which has happened has actually done some amount of good as such. Yeah, one is definitely it has made us realize that there is a bigger power, okay, which has an ability to disrupt at a scale which we are not thinking of, okay, on a day-to-day life. Just pre-COVID, we were too involved in our lives, we were too involved in our kind of really goals as such,
Right.
whether I can buy things from Amazon or not, can I actually get this particular thing or not, is my revenue going to be this much or not. We're too involved into thinking about this, I would say, smaller bits. And suddenly the COVID showed the scale, okay, or probably it put a context in reference where everything became smaller. Every other opportunity, every other goal felt actually meaningless at that point of time. And and that actually awakening was great. It was great for me. I think that awakening was also kind of really gave us time to reflect back on certain aspects in which we actually acted upon, especially socially,
Yeah.
to really help out situation, and also kind of look at this as an eye opener moment. Yeah.
Yeah.
Are we doing enough? Are we doing actually right? Are we doing kind of really? Are we are our eyes open? Yeah. Many times, you know what? Our we are very kind of really short sighted. Yeah. So we only look at probably till some distance, and if everything is fine in that distance, we are okay with it. Yeah. So are my people getting salaries at right time? Yes, great. Am I getting projects? Great. Am I able to kind of really get all luxuries in my apartment? Great. Am I able to eat out every Friday and I have good eating options around in restaurants? Yeah, great. Yeah. So you feel that that's the life. Yeah. And
Hmm.
suddenly when these things happen, when you're actually kind of really, there's almost like a jail put up, then you start reflecting upon, and suddenly that inner reflection gives you a wider perspective of how things are unfolding. Yeah. We
Yeah.
started looking at small things like our house help. Yeah, house help family not being able to reach us, which was, so they were not more concerned about they will catch COVID at the initial times. They were more concerned about that. What will we think? Will we be open to paying them salaries? Yeah, that was their struggle at that point of time.
Yeah.
So many a times, we in our lives, yes, we are probably privileged ones to effectively guard ourselves from these things by locking ourselves in. Yeah,
Correct.
there are people for whom locking themselves in is probably die of hunger.
Yes.
Yeah. And that realization only comes when you see it firsthand, when you actually start seeing this and kind of looking at it actively. Otherwise you're very lost in your miniature goals. And I think that is something that got, I mean, I got kind of really this eye opener moment for myself when first time when we actually, our house help couldn't get grains in their homes, okay, dal and rice. And she called up, we just called up and said, you know what, why didn't you tell us? So we took the risk of actually taking out a car at as early as 5 o'clock in the morning, because we thought police was not be there, and carry some of the grains and give it to her. Yeah. And that moment when you reach there, you actually start seeing that this is only one of the things that you're helping with. Okay, there's one family that you're helping with. There's a whole sea. Okay, there's a whole sea of people who actually are not concerned about whether they will survive COVID. They are more concerned about whether they will survive the lockdown. Yeah.
Correct. Correct.
So I think those are the changes that we saw, and I'm witnessing it right now as I speak as well. that although we are stuck to our COVID numbers, yeah, we own, every morning we say, what's the India stats? Yeah, are we going? Are we flattening? Are we kind of going up and down, etc.? There are more than enough people who actually don't have an opportunity to look at that graph and kind of effectively reflect upon their idea is day to day. Yeah, their living is day to day. I mean, and we are we doing enough for it or not? Are we as privileged members of the society, are we looking into, are our eyes open to look at this complex mix of audience or kind of social structure that we as a country have? Are we responding to that, or are we responding to just keeping ourselves safe? If the vaccine is out, great. Yeah, but vaccine is going to take probably 1 year, 2 year to reach us. When I say as privileged members, what will happen to people who are down at the social level, social strata? I mean, it will probably never reach them. Yeah. Or even if it reaches them, it will be probably meaningless for at that point of time for them to really to react to this. So I think at this point of time, this is the thought. These are the thoughts which actually come to your mind, and I think it's better that it has started to come, because now we see ourselves talking more responsibly. Yeah, talking more, kind of really thinking about a larger context than your context of your kind of really perimeter only. So yeah, so that's how we are, I would say.
And then you did a very, very beautiful, very creative thing of saying, let me look at what it is that I can do. And you responded like an artist, like a creator. So tell me about that thought process. When did the germ of the idea come to your mind? Did someone suggest? How did it happen?
So the idea of always, Deepa, I mean, being fortunate enough, I was not kind of struggling to get my ends meet uh, uh, as a person. And even though when I started painting, and after kind of few months, when I started seeing some good kind of really appreciation around it, people started telling me, I was always kind of really think of the idea that it will all go to charity. Yeah. Okay. So I kind of really attached myself to Autistic Forum in India, and a lot of current painting sale, 50% of all of those goes to that forum. Yeah. Okay. Now that was always the idea. Okay. But when this happened, this took precedence, because a lot of calls were coming to me from NGOs and NPOs to be able to really help out as an organization. I said, yeah, fair enough, and I could deliver money, yeah, which is right upfront. I can give some money to really do that. But I was seeing that there is a opportunity for people to own a part of what I do, and yet can be connected to the cause. Yeah. Because they were very fond of what I was doing, and I'm quite thankful to them. And the moment I actually put up this cause, I saw a lot of people willing to actually start coming up and offering this whole thing. Yeah. So I thought my art actually might be just a medium to really communicate what I think. If I would have just done it passively, if I have just done, say, for example, I would have called few people and said this, that, why don't you do charity? It would have actually slightly be slower. Suddenly, when I attached my art to it, and people started kind of really, they were following me, they started seeing a bigger cause attached to it. Their idea of actually investing into something which will make a social change became much stronger. So that's what happened, I think. And I think there's a purpose to everything that you do in life. There was a purpose when I actually came to Bombay. There was a purpose which was more personal, I would say, to kind of make a name for myself, to earn a living for myself, and then kind of really go up in life. At this moment, I would say the purpose is actually to give back. Yeah. And the purpose, how much ever kind of cliche it may sound, you know what, at sometimes when you actually in this moment, so when I paint, I completely kind of immerse myself. Yeah. I forget about what things are happening around. Yeah. But that moment when you forget what things are happening around, a certain kind of enlightenment happens, where you start seeing things which are beyond what's happening in real life. Yeah. So at this moment, I will actually kind of really, when this whole COVID thing happened, okay, there were few things that I painted, and it was more to kind of really tell you that sometimes when you are an artist or a creator, you start seeing beyond things, yeah? And that's where the story emerges for you to create an artwork. So I created this, I mean, this is, if you can see it here.
Yeah.
This is a marshland in front of my apartment. My apartment is a 40-floor tower, okay, and just opposite to the tower there's a marshy land. I'm in Vadala in Mumbai, and beyond that there are slums.
Okay.
Okay. Now in the heat of the at the peak of the COVID here,
Mm-hmm.
I saw this man actually braving to go into this marshy land because obviously he can't afford a boat, okay, and probably things were closed, and he was fishing. He was
Wow.
fishing in this marshy land, and he was alone there. And I'm sure that marshy lands are not kind of really too forgiving to really walk into it and kind of really do activity. But suddenly the story emerged. Yeah, the story came into being that, I mean, he is not concerned about hygiene. He's not concerned about not touching each other. He's absolutely concentrated on getting his family fed. Yeah.
Yeah.
And he's a lone warrior. Okay, so I named it as a lone warrior. I named the painting as lone warrior. He's a lone warrior. Nobody's thinking about it. Nobody's thinking about him. And then I also kind of really got an opportunity to go into one of the markets in the slum areas, or kind of really the lower strata, and this is how it looks. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, they they're all out. Okay, they are not kind of really maintaining physical distance, and I'm not seeing this as a disrespect to what government is asked to do. I see more of it as something. It's compulsive for them to really go out. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's important for them to really be in this kind of situation. And when I see these scenes, when I see kind of all this kind of really things, and I paint, that's the time when the thought comes to your mind. You know what? That there is a story. There's always a story behind, which actually will unveil when you start looking closer. Okay, and then you start to realize the opportunities that you as a privileged member of the society have.
Yeah. This is so.
Otherwise we have, I'll tell you, we have 3 sanitizers along the passage that you can see. Yeah, I have one at the dining table, I have one at my kitchen table, and I have one at the door. Yeah, there are 3 sanitizers, and actually when I come from outside, I just kind of really put my hand into sanitizers, or probably almost kind of sink my hand into sanitizers. Yeah. And we are so kind of really privileged. So sometimes all this kind of really is contradicting to what exactly is the purpose that you are into. What are you there? What is there? I mean, you're being privileged, and you're getting so much to consume to keep yourself safe, while the other people are not. Other people are not. You have to really think about. You have to think for a larger purpose that you're there for. So I think sometimes these thoughts actually prompt us, and we are bound to think about it. And I'm very thankful that I'm able to do something about it. I'm sure that many people here would be liking to do. I think that step has to be taken. It can't be just passive. We can't be all armchair activists. We can't be just sitting down and thinking about that there are people around who probably are not as privileged. So yeah, I would say these are the moments when my art actually came to being of some meaning, which meaningfully went back to the stories from where I was taking inspiration from. So if this was a painting somebody got inspired to buy for me, then I'm pretty sure some part should go to this man, because he was a subject that I could actually paint.
Yeah.
He probably walked out for me to really get his story. So I have a responsibility to give it back to him. So I think these are the things that I think about. There in this COVID times, I did a lot of paintings. This one was just a photograph from one of my friends around. Is Charminar with I mean, it's just kind of there's no people around, if you can see here, and there's only kind of really birds as such. Now all these are just kind of moments of COVID, okay, where you start kind of seeing beyond things. There is nobody to feed the bird there at the moment. Yeah, the birds were there because of people around. Yeah, and suddenly these birds are coming there with an expectation, but probably it's not there. you start kind of thinking about this whole kind of really scenario which is happening around us. So yeah, a lot of it, I mean, these are my inspirations in these times, which have actually not only allowed me to paint as such, but also allowed me to really think beyond what I'm doing currently.
Like you said, it's just changed the whole scale and the perspectives.
It does.
That's made us away from being self-centered to maybe just including a lot more who otherwise we had put blinkers on our eyes with our small lives.
Yeah, I think Deepa, I wouldn't call it self-centered. I think our reach of our mind itself was very low. Yeah. I mean, if I'm actually paying, I'm actually creating job for 100 people, 120 people, or kind of I'm running an organization like you are running an organization, you're still doing some good to certain amount of people. You're still in a world where their families are being provided for. But I think it's limited. It was limited to that. So I wouldn't say self-centered, but it was. I mean, our minds were not kind of really tuned to really think in such a context. At least a larger part of our minds, larger population was not thinking in that term. I right now I see, and the kind of result that we got on the poll, a new world is
Yes.
there in the making. I think that thought is now getting stronger and in much larger scale, I would say.
Tanay, this is so powerful. And in this last segment, we just have about 6 minutes left. What I want is for you to tell our viewers, how is it that they might actually use these moments for as inspiration? In this context, people like us who can, who are in that sense privileged, who can sit and think, and in terms of what is it that I can do to contribute, what are some of the thoughts that come to mind, in terms of keeping up the hope, in terms of doing one's bit.
So I think one line, if I had to say, I think remove yourself from the equation. Yeah, remove yourself of. So when we do kind of certain good things, we want recognition for it. Yeah, we seek kind of recognition, to be recognized for what we are doing. I think the best part would be if we remove ourselves from the equation and say that there is nothing that you are going to gain from it. Okay, the moment your gain comes out of the equation, I think the selflessness will suddenly kind of really come to the surface. Like for example, paint I don't paint to sell. Yeah, I paint to just kind of for myself. Okay, I don't paint for when I paint, I almost paint when like nobody is around. Yeah, I'm not painting for anybody's not responding to anybody's kind of really brief as such, or I'm not painting for a particular monetary gain as such. So when you're in that mode, when you dissociate your personal gain altogether, and you are not benefiting from it at all, then suddenly the purpose becomes much bigger than you. And I think you also kind of feel a sense of satisfaction of doing good. Otherwise, every action, if you want a reaction to it, uh, then probably every action will be evaluated, and probably every time if you don't get that reaction, you will feel disappointed, and the enthusiasm of doing good will go. So don't ever question your good deed and kind of want a reaction for it. Just do it. It's for your own good. It's for your own satisfaction. Not it's for nobody else, I would say. That's my last thought.
And I'm just curious, because we started talking about your father being the initial prod. What does your father have to say about all this art and and of course your journey? So a little bit, if you can.
So dad came from a farming family, yeah. And his I would say he has five brothers and three sisters, as far as I remember, yeah. And all of them actually are still doing farming. And he came to Jamshedpur Tata Steel after doing his engineering, and he made his own life, and he was very proud of himself. Or I'm very proud of him actually. When I look back, when I go to the village at times, I see the thing that he has made for himself, and I'm sure that when he was going out, his dad would have had equal amount of inhibition, that इस लड़के का क्या होगा. Yeah. When he was going out of the village to Tata Steel, Jamshedpur, and etc., he would have had the same stuff. And I'm sure that my dad would have had the same kind of reactions when I actually started pursuing fields which was not on his radar. Okay, he never thought that I would do anything about it. But saying that dad was ever kind of never questioned me. Okay,
Wow.
he made it possible to do it, and maybe his expectations were low from me, and he said that okay, fine, let him actually decide what he does for himself, and maybe he will do best when he decides himself, yeah, rather than we deciding it for him. So I think that has been an inspiration all the while for me, and right now he's retired, he's doing his gardening, and he makes it a point, although he lives in a slight secluded place near Pune, he makes it a point to actually go and click my picture and like my posts, yeah.
Yeah.
So and the only statement that he makes when I call him is that तुम अच्छा पेंटिंग करते हो. And that's about it, okay. And then he's to start talking about his grandson. He'll start talking about COVID and nothing else. I mean, he's not kind of really bothered about anything else. So I think parents always are a great points where you get humbled, okay. You don't kind of really they've seen you, okay, they've seen you grow up. I mean, yes, they are proud of it, but they will never be pompous about you.
Yeah.
Okay, and I think that's the trait that I've seen in my mom and my dad as such. They still. I mean, it was a hard time for me, even though I have everything to really give it to them. It was a hard time for me to really try to change them from a modem, a normal kind of dial-up connection to a modem. Yeah, just to kind of really have a word with them. They still have a very low connection. At times, he uses his mobile to really connect, and I've told him enough number of times that you know what, I can get you a connection. He said, I don't want it. So I think somewhere those that's what actually family does to you. It actually just brings you to ground if you're actually flying too high. And I'm quite thankful to have a family like that around, which doesn't kind of really just puts you up. He's actually just puts you into the normal things around. Yeah, I would say.
What a beautiful, uplifting way to spend my Thursday morning. I'm so delighted and so privileged to have this chat with you in your living room and me in my living room. And of course, I call it my studio. So
Nice. It was wonderful sharing things.
yeah, it was awesome. It was awesome. And I have some big takeaways from Tanay Kumar. Audience, I'm sure you are going to enjoy listening to this talk again. If you somewhere signed up in between, joined us between, make it a point to go from the beginning because Tanay tells us some really cool things about how he started. And this is really fabulous, Tanay. Can you just show us what you're in the midst of making there on your easel? I can see the easel in
So yeah, I mean obviously painting. I paint every week, so that's. I'm just going to show you. It's a fisherman.
Uh-huh.
I don't know if you can see the sketch
Yes.
clearly.
Yeah.
It's a fisherman in Sri Lanka. Fisherman in Sri Lanka, and this was a photograph by one of the famous photographer from National Geographic.
Okay. Wow.
I don't know if how many of you know Steve McCurry. He's a great the one who actually photographed Afghanistan's beautiful girl. Yeah,
Yes.
the one with the eyes on the cover of the magazine. Yeah. So I reached out to him. I was quite fascinated by this photograph, and I was in the midst of actually looking for people at work, and he has this fabulous photograph where there's a very unique style of fishing. So they actually don't have boats. Okay, so what they do is they have big bamboo poles which they put inside deep inside the seashore, and they climb up the bamboo shore and then have a fishing rod in the stuff. It's quite tough. Okay, it looks quite tough to do, sitting there on a piece of wood for the whole day looking for your catch. Yeah. I saw this painting and I reached out to him that will I be can I paint this picture because it's quite intrigued. I was quite intrigued with the picture, and he said this will be quite excited to really for him to have this painting in his collection as a tribute to what he has been doing. So yeah. So this is my weekend. This weekend's work. to really look at how I interpret his iconic picture into my language, I would say. So yeah.
So every Saturday, for a couple of hours for the last 1.5 years, you've been painting, Tanay.
So I think now it has started on from Friday nights. I kind of paint almost not 4 to 5 hours. I paint almost like 9 to 10 hours on my weekends every day. Because through the week you don't get time. I don't get time to really do anything, and I don't want to waste even a single moment without my brush, because it just involves me into getting into another world. It just kind of really switches off from all the meetings, all the kind of really day-to-day stuff, and then allows you to see things. So I think it involves me completely, and I don't want to lose even a minute now. I feel that it's something that the medium has chosen for me to do, and I should respect watercolor to
So
do
it's
that.
your mental sanitizer.
It's mental sanitizer. It's I would say I wouldn't say sanitizer. I think it is something which drives me today. Yeah, I would say it drives me to see things around in a different way. Yeah, I don't know in a different way or not, but at least in my way. Yeah, I have my own kind of really set of eyes, and I think the way I see probably it's going to be unique as such. So I don't want to kind of lose that moment now.
So thank you for giving us a beautiful view into your world. And I really hope we can have another conversation with you at some point in time, Tanay.
Sure, and I'll get Priyanka as well. Probably you can reflect. We can reflect back, and you and Milind probably we can have a
Yeah,
conversation.
we should. Thank you. And all the best to you and your team, and stay safe.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, guys, for listening.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye bye.